How's it going, guys? Today we are going to be talking about the Samyang 12mm f2.0 lens. Let's roll the B-roll. Okay, who wrote the script? Let's roll the B-roll. It's a little bit redundant. As an architect, I actually find that architecture and photography have a lot in common, Actually, maybe architecture and photography doesn't have a lot of things in common. I'm not really sure where I was going with that thought. Architecture photography, or photography in general, is a great skill to add to your skill set as an architect. It helps you build your portfolio, like taking pictures of recently completed projects and such like that, posting it to your website, on your Instagrams, on your Facebooks, on your Friendster, all those kinds of stuff. Of course, you could take pictures with a regular cell phone or that kind of stuff, but more often than not, images taken with the cell phone tend to be a little bit on the potato-ish side of the quality scale, especially when you are not that skilled in photography, such as myself. That is why I compensate with my lack of skill with this lens. That sounded bad. Okay, let's take a look at the technical specs of this lens. So this lens has an aperture of f2.0, which is a pretty wide aperture. This means that the aperture opens up really wide to allow a lot of light into the sensor, which means you could take those handheld indoor shots if you're too lazy to set up a tripod, I guess. Okay, so this lens that I'm holding right now, the Samyang 12mm f2.0, is made specifically for mirrorless bodies, which makes the small form factor of this lens possible. And because of that small size, this lens only weighs 260 grams, which is about roughly the same weight as 260 grains of rice, assuming that each grain of rice weighs 1 gram. Enough with the technical specs of this lens, moving on to the build quality. So this lens is built like a tank, whose upper half is made of plastic and glass. The lower half of this lens, which consists of the lens mount in this aperture ring, is made of metal. Unfortunately, the upper half is made of plastic. So this zoom ring, this lens hood, and also the filter thread is plastic. The zoom ring on this lens is pretty buttery smooth, which makes it good for pulling focus for video, and also manual focusing in general, so that you don't overshoot your focus distance. So in contrast with the zoom ring, the aperture ring has a clicky feel to it, reassuring that you are not twisting the zoom ring. Okay, so this lens is a little bit half plasticky and half solid metal, but the plastic is pretty good. It's like a solid plastic. Also, it's a thick type of plastic. It doesn't feel flimsy at all. Of course, this half metally, half plasticky build quality does not come as a surprise, because this lens comes in at a budget price of $300, which if you compare to its other competitors like the Sony 10 to 18mm, which I also have here. Let me just grab it. Okay, the Sony 10 to 18mm right here, which costs around $750, and also the Zeiss Tuit, I don't know how to pronounce this, the Zeiss Tuit lens, which comes in at a whopping $999. Okay, so that lens is $1 short from costing like $1,000. Me and my great math skills. I think this lens is a steal. Well, half a steal. Because half of it is made of steel, which is like a synonym for metal. Alright guys, moving on to the most exciting part of this video, which is optics, which is probably why all of you guys clicked on this video, is to see how sharp or how good this lens is. So if it's really up to the hype of what people say on the interwebs, we'll see. The optics of this lens is top-notch and rivals that of its Zeiss counterpart. It has NCS nano coating system, which I assume reduces ghosting, flaring, and other chromatic aberrations. It has 2 spherical elements and 2 dispersion elements. That sounds like a Magic the Gathering terminology. Anyways, it has 6 aperture blades, creating pleasing bokeh. Its focal length of 12mm is equivalent to an 18mm lens mounted on a full-frame sensor, which means, if my calculations are correct, gives this lens about a 99-degree field of view. This isn't even a calcu, it's just a card holder. Anyways, 99 degrees is pretty impressive, considering that the human eyes can see 114 degrees field of view. So it's like, let me grab my calculator again. Okay, so that means that this lens could see 15 degrees narrower than what our human eyes could see. But enough with the math, let's talk image quality. The images taken with this lens look super great. The lens is sharp all throughout all apertures, although there's a little bit of softness around the corners, but You can't really avoid that with ultra-wide angle lenses. A little barrel distortion is also present with this lens, which is something that's easily correctable with Photoshop or Lightroom. So the bokeh from this lens is smooth, buttery, pleasant to the eyes, and not too distracting. The chromatic aberrations on this lens is very controlled. There's a small amount of chroma on high contrast areas, in between a window or letterings on a black background and that such, but you cannot avoid that. Okay, stopping down the lens to f4 and f8 definitely removes all the chroma issues. Also, there's a little bit of vignetting with this lens, but nothing a little bit of Photoshop or Lightroom couldn't correct. Flaring could also be produced if you point this lens directly at the sunlight, so just don't do that to avoid flaring. Okay, wrapping it up. Who is this lens for? So this ultra-wide angle lens is for architectural photographers, landscape photographers, and astrophotographers out there who are looking in to get the most bang for their buck. Okay, because of the price point of this lens could be easily enjoyed by prosumers, consumers, and even enthusiasts of the like, because it's very cheap, so anyone could afford this. With all of that said, I do not recommend this lens for those of you who are not into manual focusing, because this lens is manual focus. That's probably how they got this lens at such a cheap price point, is that you have to manually focus. With the manual focus assist on mirrorless cameras, you don't really have to worry about it. Overall, this is a great, relatively cheap ultra-wide angle lens to add to your camera bag. Its great size and superb optics make this a must-have for enthusiasts and professionals alike. That's the video, guys. I hope you liked it, and I hope I helped you in one way or another. Anyways, I am Llyan, and I will see you guys on the next video. Flying peace! Oh, I almost forgot. Don't forget to subscribe.